A week before the wedding, my fiancé's ex-girlfriend was diagnosed with cancer. "Let's postpone the wedding," he said. "Chloe has cancer and only has 3 months to live. Her only wish is for me to stay with her." I didn't cry or make a scene. Instead, I smiled as I took off my ring. "What a coincidence," I said. "My first love also only has 3 months to live." Mark's expression instantly froze, as if he hadn't understood my words. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes, which had once spoken of love countless times, now filled with bewilderment and a trace of indignant offense. "What? Which first love? Why have you never mentioned him?" His voice was laced with suspicion. I gently placed the platinum ring, symbolizing our commitment, on the entryway table, a soft, distinct click echoing. I looked up, meeting his gaze directly, my face still wearing that unblemished, almost casual smile. "John, the one who was really good at basketball in high school. Remember him? We even talked about him at our class reunion last year." My tone was calm, as if discussing tomorrow's weather. "He also has terminal cancer. The doctors say 3 months at most. He called me yesterday, crying, saying his biggest regret in life was breaking up with me, and his only wish is for me to be with him for his final journey." I paused, appreciating the shifting expressions on Mark's face, before slowly adding, "See, what a coincidence. Put yourself in my shoes. You're so kind. You'll surely understand me, right? After all, you're willing to postpone our wedding for Chloe." Mark's face went red, then pale. My words had left him speechless, unable to find any crack for a rebuttal. He tried to grab my wrist. "Annie, this is different." "How is it different?" I gently pulled my hand back, interrupting him. My smile faded, and my gaze sharpened. "Is it because Chloe is your past, and John is mine? Or do you think your sympathy is somehow superior, or more unavoidable, than mine?" He was speechless. "So," I said, picking up my clutch and walking towards the door, my voice decisive, "the wedding is cancelled. Not postponed, but cancelled. You go accompany your idealized past love on his final journey, and I'll go comfort my unforgettable true love through his remaining days. We're completely done." With that, I didn't wait for his reaction. I opened the door and walked straight out. The moment the door closed, the fake smile vanished completely from my face. My heart felt like a piece had been brutally ripped out, but there wasn't a single tear in my eyes, only cold resolve. He had chosen to be with her in her final moments, sacrificing me, so my departure was the most powerful response to his choice. I blocked all of Mark's contact information, cutting him out cleanly, like excising a piece of rotting flesh. I rented a riverside apartment, spending my days immersed in my soon-to-open flora, using the vitality of the flowers and plants to numb myself. Only at night, facing the river, did I allow myself to feel that dull, agonizing pain. However, the calm lasted only 2 weeks. That afternoon, as I was arranging newly arrived flowers in my studio, the wind chimes on the door tinkled. I looked up, my heart sinking. It was Mark. He looked somewhat haggard, but the previous bewilderment in his eyes was gone, replaced by a somber anger. He glanced at the studio, filled with flowers and taking shape, a sarcastic curve forming on his lips. "That was quick. Starting a new life?" His voice was ice cold. I put the rose down, straightened up, and calmly looked at him. "Can I help you, Annie? Let's talk." He took a few steps closer, trying to create a sense of intimidation. "I can't let you ruin everything between us like this. All for a ridiculous, retaliatory lie?" "A lie?" I raised an eyebrow. "I checked," Mark said, staring intently into my eyes as if trying to see through my pretense. "John, your so-called first love with terminal cancer. He's perfectly fine. Last month he even posted photos of himself running a marathon on social media. You were completely deceiving me." He had finally seized what he believed to be leverage, his voice laced with a victor's challenge and threat. I watched him calmly, without any alarm at being exposed, and simply smiled. "So?" He choked on my nonchalant 3-word response, before angrily retorting, So you're a liar. You used despicable means to sabotage our wedding and ruin my reputation. Now everyone knows I'm a jerk who abandoned his fiancée for an ex-girlfriend. And you? You play the victim." He took a deep breath, then issued his threat, "Come back with me immediately. Explain everything to everyone. Admit that you lied and created chaos because you were jealous of Chloe, and the wedding will proceed as planned. Otherwise what?" I took a step forward, staring him down. Otherwise, I'll destroy your reputation. Mark's gaze turned malicious. I'll tell everyone what a wicked, deceitful woman you are. This shabby studio of yours will be shut down before it even opens. I know the local floral suppliers and the managers of the business district. You know I have the power to make it impossible for you to get by here. He finally tore off his pretense of devotion and helplessness, revealing the fangs of control and selfishness beneath. He wouldn't allow me to deviate from his script, wouldn't allow me to abandon him in return. I looked at him, suddenly finding him utterly ridiculous and profoundly pitiful. Mark. My voice was soft, yet as clear as an icicle. Are you finished? He looked at my overly calm face, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. First, I said, holding up a finger, regarding John, I admit, those were words spoken in anger. He's perfectly healthy, but, I sharply emphasized my words, cutting off the accusation he was about to utter. That doesn't change the fact that a week before our wedding, you unhesitatingly chose to sacrifice me for another woman, just because cancer is real. Does that entitle you to postpone the wedding and push your fiancé aside? Your choice was real. Your harm to me was real. Secondly, I said, holding up a second finger, meeting his somber gaze without flinching, go ahead and tell everyone. Go tell everyone that I, Annie, spoke words spoken in anger because of your betrayal. Let's see if people will despise me, the liar, more, or hold you, the devoted gentleman who ran off to serve as a hospice volunteer for his ex-girlfriend before his wedding and then tried to threaten his wronged fiancé, in greater contempt? I took out my phone and waved it in front of him. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Our conversation has been recorded since you walked in. Would you like to hear how you just threatened to destroy my reputation and make it impossible for me to get by? If I put this recording online along with the evidence of you investigating John's health information, who do you think would suffer a greater loss? Mark's face instantly went deathly pale. He looked at my phone in disbelief, then at me, and for the first time, genuine fear appeared in his eyes. The power he relied on to threaten me seemed utterly powerless in the face of more direct evidence. You manipulated me? His voice was hoarse. I merely learned to protect myself, I said, looking at him coldly. The moment you chose to resolve things your way, I knew there was nothing left between us but war. Now, take your threats and get out of my studio. I pointed to the door, my gaze like a knife forged in ice. Don't ever appear before me again. Otherwise, I can't guarantee this recording won't end up with your boss, or in Chloe's hospital room. Mark froze in place, his face cycling between green and red, a mix of humiliation, rage, and fear. He opened his mouth, but not a single word came out. Finally, like a defeated man, he glared at me fiercely, then stumbled as he turned and left. After the door closed, I slowly put down my phone, my palms clammy with cold sweat. I hadn't recorded anything. It was just a bluff, but I knew that to deal with someone like him, I had to be tougher, leaving no room for negotiation. A few evenings later, the doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I saw Mark standing outside, and leaning against him was a pale, frail woman, Chloe. She was wrapped in a thick shawl, looking as if she could be blown away by the slightest breeze. I took a deep breath and opened the door. I wanted to see what kind of drama they would stage next. Annie, Mark began, his voice tinged with deliberate fatigue and pleading. Can we come in and talk? Chloe. She really wants to explain things to you herself. Chloe raised her large, watery eyes, looking at me timidly, her voice barely a whisper. Annie, I'm so sorry, truly sorry. It's all my fault. Her performance was flawless, perfectly embodying the image of a fragile woman, filled with remorse, whose life was nearing its end. I didn't step aside. I just leaned against the doorframe, my arms crossed, my gaze calmly sweeping over them. Just say it out here. It's well ventilated out here. A flicker of embarrassment crossed Mark's face, but it was quickly replaced by helplessness. Chloe gently tugged his sleeve, signaling that it was okay. Annie, Mark said, licking his somewhat dry lips. I know you're angry, and what I did before was wrong, and I have talked, and we both hope you can understand. He looked at Chloe, his eyes filled with pity. She really doesn't have much time left. The doctors confirmed it. 3 months at most. She has no family left in this world. Chloe, at the opportune moment, lowered her head and began to sob softly. Mark continued his speech, his tone becoming increasingly sincere. Her last wish is simply to feel a little warmth and companionship. It's not to break us apart, Annie. We can just postpone our wedding slightly. After I accompany her on this final journey, we'll get married immediately. I promise you. You're the only one I love in my heart." Chloe also looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. She echoed, "Yes, Annie. I would never interfere with your relationship. I'm just so scared. Having by my side gives me some courage. Please don't be angry with him for taking care of me, and don't leave him because of it. You two are such a perfect match." What a magnanimous, self-sacrificing final request. They were working in tandem, trying to forge the strongest shackles with death and sympathy, locking me firmly into this distorted relationship. In the past, I might have been intimidated by this display, or even felt a flicker of hesitation, but now, my heart was filled with a cold sense of absurdity. I waited quietly for them to finish. Only Chloe's soft sobs remained in the air. "Are you done?" I asked, my voice devoid of inflection. Mark and Chloe both froze, apparently hadn't expected such a reaction from me. I looked at Chloe and asked directly, "Chloe, what type of cancer were you diagnosed with? Which hospital? Who is your attending physician?" Chloe's crying instantly caught in her throat, and a subtle flicker of panic crossed her eyes. She looked at Mark for help. Mark immediately stepped forward. "Annie, what do you mean by that? Do you think we would lie to you about something like this? That's too cruel. Answer my question." I stared intently at Chloe, my gaze piercing. "Since this is the reason you're asking me to make an enormous sacrifice, I have the right to know the most basic facts. What type of cancer? Which hospital?" Chloe's face turned even whiter. Her lips trembled, unable to utter a complete medical term or hospital name. Mark stepped in front of Chloe, his tone hardening. "Annie, don't go too far. Interrogating a patient, is this your strength?" I laughed, a laugh heavy with sarcasm. "See, you don't even dare to answer the simplest question." My gaze bypassed Mark, landing on Chloe. "Or, do I need to call my doctor friend now and ask him to check the recent registration records for terminal cancer patients in the city? MS. Chloe?" Chloe's body trembled imperceptibly. Mark's face turned extremely grim. "You investigated us?" "Hardly an investigation," I said coldly. "I merely conducted some basic verification when deciding whether to give up my fiancé for someone who only has 3 months to live. After all, sympathy shouldn't be abused, should it?" I took a step forward, no longer looking at the pale, faltering Chloe, but directly into Mark's eyes, and said, enunciating each word, "Mark, look closely. This is the person you chose to protect by sacrificing me. She doesn't even have the courage to face scrutiny, only hiding behind the shield of terminal illness. One of you uses false devotion to move himself, and the other uses feigned serious illness to gain sympathy. Truly a perfect pair. Now, take your partner, who needs end-of-life care but can't even explain her condition, and get out of my sight immediately." My voice was not loud, but it carried an unquestionable resolve. "I'm sick of your act. Don't come around to disgust me again." Mark's face turned beet red, humiliation and rage making him tremble all over. Chloe completely collapsed against him, beginning to cry genuinely and despairingly, this time, perhaps not because of terminal illness, but because her facade had been publicly ripped away. Mark ultimately couldn't utter another word. He practically half-carried, half-dragged Chloe, disappearing down the hallway in utter disarray. I closed the door, leaned against it, and slowly exhaled a heavy breath. My palms were still sweaty, but my heart felt unusually firm. Truth-facing courage will always shatter falsehood. Mark's accusatory phone call, like a bucket of ice water, completely extinguished the last wavering spark in my heart. I knew clearly that as long as Chloe's condition hung over us, Mark would forever stand on the moral high ground, ready to blame me and demand my understanding and concessions over every little thing. Passive waiting and verbal arguments were meaningless. To end this farce, I had to take control, and the breakthrough lay in Chloe's highly suspicious cancer. I began to act, as calmly as if planning a business campaign. First, I started with social media. Chloe's account was set to be visible for 6 months, with few posts, mostly landscape photos and melancholic captions. But I didn't give up. Through friends she occasionally tagged, I followed the trail and found a few frequent contacts. In a group photo from a few months ago, I sharply noticed a membership bracelet on her wrist from a high-end yoga club. A person suffering from terminal cancer would have the energy to practice yoga? Next, I leveraged some professional network I'd built from previous jobs. The wife of a former colleague was a head nurse in the oncology department at County Hospital. I made an excuse to treat her to coffee and discreetly inquired if there had been any young female terminal cancer patient named Chloe admitted recently. My head nurse friend was very helpful, checking the records privately, and the result was as expected, no such person found. Not at county. So what about other major public hospitals? Through a friend of a friend, I indirectly asked acquaintances in the information departments of several well-known oncology hospitals, and the replies were consistent. No Chloe matching the criteria: name, age, suspected terminal illness, had been admitted or received aggressive treatment. The mystery deepened. If she were truly seriously ill, it would be impossible for her not to leave a trace in these major hospitals. So, only two possibilities remained. 1. She used an alias. 2. She was being treated at a private clinic or a small hospital. The possibility of an alias was low. After all, she needed to use her identity to gain Mark's trust and sympathy, and an alias would be too risky. Therefore, the focus shifted to the private medical system. This investigation would be more difficult and require more finesse. As I was contemplating my next step, Mark, as I expected, showed up again. This time, he blocked me below my apartment. He looked even more haggard than last time, with sunken eyes and a scruffy beard. His once handsome face, which had captivated me, was now marred by a pallor and a stubborn obsessiveness. "Annie, let's talk." He blocked my path, his voice hoarse, with a tired insistence. "Chloe's condition has stabilized a bit, but she's very fragile. I'm begging you, please, don't appear before her again. Don't provoke her. Whatever compensation you want, I'll try my best to provide it. Just please leave us alone." "US?" I scoffed, catching that keyword. "Mark, in your heart, it's already you and her, and I'm the outsider who needs to be left alone. Isn't that right?" He avoided my gaze, his voice pleading, yet even more chilling. Just pity a dying person, okay? "Annie, I know you feel wronged, but she doesn't have much time left, and I'm under a lot of pressure too." "Your pressure isn't my fault," I interrupted him, unwilling to hear any more platitudes. "Mark, have you ever considered that her illness might not at all be what you perceive it to be?" Mark suddenly looked up, his eyes first showing a flicker of shock, then quickly replaced by anger. "Here you go again. Annie, do you have to maliciously speculate about a patient like this? I've seen the medical report. It's all there in black and white." "Medical reports can be forged, and symptoms can be exaggerated," I said, looking at him calmly. "Have you never suspected anything? Never thought of going to the hospital where she was treated and personally confirming with her attending physician?" "Of course I confirmed it," Mark retorted, as if I'd stepped on his tail. "I went to the hospital with her. It's a professional private oncology center. The environment is good, and the doctors are very professional. A private oncology center, a crucial piece of information." I suppressed the ripples in my heart and asked without batting an eye. "Oh, which center? If it's so professional, it must be well known." Mark uttered a name: Harmony Wellness Center. It sounded very legitimate, but it was a name I had never heard on the list of top local medical resources. "Look, I'm not questioning you, Mark," I said, softening my tone, a hint of guidance in my voice. "I just think all of this is too coincidental and too dramatic. For our peace of mind, perhaps you should go to that center alone, without Chloe present, and have a detailed discussion directly with the attending physician to understand her specific treatment plan and prognosis. After all, you've invested so much emotion and effort, even gambled our marriage. You have the right to know the most accurate and comprehensive information, not just what Chloe tells you or by only looking at a cold medical report." My words, like a seed, were gently cast upon the lake of his heart, filled with guilt and anxiety. He froze, and for the first time, obvious struggle and hesitation appeared in his eyes. He certainly loved Chloe, or perhaps that self-satisfying sense of redemption, but he wasn't foolish. What I proposed was a reasonable and irrefutable suggestion, to verify it personally and independently. "She won't agree," Mark mumbled, his voice dry. "She said she doesn't want me to see her suffering during treatment." "So, you prefer to live in a narrative woven for you by others rather than see the truth with your own eyes?" I gave him one last look, my gaze perhaps holding pity, but more so resolute finality. "Suit yourself. My stance won't change until you figure everything out. Don't bother me again with your affairs." With that, I walked past him and left directly. The seed I had planted had clearly taken root in Mark's mind and quickly sprouted. Just as I was discreetly investigating the Harmony Wellness Center, discovering it was more like a luxurious retreat offering psychological comfort and alternative therapies than an institution qualified for mainstream cancer treatments like chemotherapy and radiation. Mark got results first. He stormed into my flora, this time without his previous anger or fatigue, replaced instead by a nearly shattered state, mixed with immense shock, the furious rage of being duped, and deep-seated shame. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair disheveled, as if he had just broken free from a nightmare. Annie, his voice was hoarse and trembling, barely able to stand. You were right. I put down the floral materials and looked at him calmly, saying nothing, waiting for what he would say next. I knew the iceberg of truth had surfaced. I secretly went to the Harmony Center yesterday. He began to narrate incoherently, his hands clenched tightly into fists, knuckles white. I avoided Chloe and insisted on seeing her attending physician. That doctor. He initially tried to placate me with Chloe's narrative, but I adopted a stance of threatening complaints and a full investigation. He couldn't hold out. Mark's voice, thick with a choked voice, was filled with self-loathing. It's not terminal cancer at all. It's a rare but completely controllable autoimmune disease. It requires long-term management, but it's absolutely not life-threatening. The so-called only 3 months to live was Chloe's desperate plea to that doctor, asking him to exaggerate her condition to deceive me. The medical report is fake. Those treatment photos she showed me were all taken during regular physical therapy sessions at a nursing home. He suddenly looked up, his eyes burning with furious rage and regret. She lied to me. She exploited my sympathy, my guilt. She ruined my wedding. She ruined my relationship. I was like an idiot. For her. I actually treated you like that. He agonizingly clutched his head, squatting down, his shoulders trembling violently. I continued to watch him in silence. There was no sense of triumph in my heart, only the cold, settling dust of I knew it. His current suffering was the price he paid for his own foolishness and indecision. After a moment, Mark abruptly stood up, his face etched with a desperate resolve. As if burning his bridges. I'm going to find her. I'm going to confront her face to face. Why would she do this to me? This time, I didn't stop him. He needed to personally bring this charade to an end. Mark stormed back to the apartment he and Chloe had temporarily rented. Like a hurricane, Chloe was relaxing in soft loungewear, her face rosy as she watched TV, a half-empty wineglass by her side, definitely not the state of someone with only 3 months to live. Seeing Burston with such an intense, furious presence, Chloe was startled at first, then quickly switched back to her frail demeanor, softly saying, "Mark, what's wrong? You look awful." "Enough!" Mark roared, his voice rattling the windows. He snatched Chloe's wineglass and smashed it onto the floor, sending shards of glass and red wine splashing everywhere. "Stop pretending, Chloe! You liar!" Chloe's face instantly went pale. She instinctively stepped back, forcing herself to appear composed. "Mark, what are you talking about? I don't understand." "Don't understand?" Mark advanced step by step, his gaze cutting into her like knives. "Harmony Wellness Center, Dr. Robert, autoimmune disease. Do I need to go on?" Hearing these keywords, the facade on Chloe's face completely shattered, revealing panic and fear. Her lips trembling, she tried one last desperate struggle. "No, it's not like that. Mark, please let me explain. There's been a new development in my condition." "Shut up!" Mark cut her off, every word forced out through gritted teeth. "I confronted Dr. Robert myself. You bribed him to lie for you. Only 3 months to live? Chloe, look me in the eye and tell me, do you really only have 3 months to live?" Under's intensely furious gaze, Chloe's psychological defenses completely collapsed. She slumped to the floor, no longer faking it, but genuinely starting to tremble. "Yes, I did lie to you," she finally admitted, tears welling up. But this time, they weren't a tool for sympathy. They were born of fear. "Because I love you. Mark, I couldn't bear the thought of you marrying someone else. I lost you once. I couldn't lose you a second time. I just wanted to keep you by my side. You wanted to bind me to you with lies and a terminal illness?" Mark's laugh was bitter and sarcastic. "Is this how you love me? Chloe, you don't love me at all. You love yourself. It's your twisted possessiveness. You made me feel like the biggest fool in the world." He looked around the apartment, specifically rented because of Chloe's illness, and which now felt oppressively stifling, and he felt nothing but profound disgust. We're done, Chloe. Mark's voice was cold and weary, carrying an absolute finality. From now on, you and I have nothing left between us. Please, disappear from my life forever. With that, he didn't spare another glance for the crying, trembling woman on the floor. He turned and resolutely walked out of that place filled with lies. The door slammed shut with a resounding thud, as if drawing a final close to his absurd redemption journey. Mark stood on the bustling street, feeling a profound emptiness and bewilderment. After the shock of the truth, came a deeper pain and endless regret for his actions. He had lost the happiness that was once within his grasp, and all of it stemmed from his gullibility and indecisiveness. The confrontation between Mark and Chloe, brimming with lies and collapse, resonated like a muffled clap of thunder, exploding in the murky air before quickly dissipating. I had no interest in how Chloe would pick up the pieces, nor did I care about Mark's remorse after the truth came out. Their story, for me, had already closed that chapter. I poured all my energy, time, and even the resolve sparked by that absurd debacle into my flora. It was no longer just about making a living or having an outlet. I saw it as my battlefield for self-reinvention and declaring my independence. My designs became bolder, weaving the pain, struggles, and the resilience and clarity forged from those experiences into my floral art. My work began to have soul. Opportunity always favors those who are truly focused and strong. An internationally renowned lifestyle magazine was planning a special feature on local female, an influential editor, after coincidentally seeing Flora's work, proactively reached out. After in-depth discussions and an on-site visit, she was deeply moved by my story and my work. Then, on a sunny afternoon, I received official notification. Flora, along with my personal entrepreneurial journey, would be featured in a major annual issue of the magazine, representing renewal and resilience. Almost simultaneously, a highly anticipated high-end commercial complex project also extended an invitation, asking my studio to provide full floral design and arrangements for their upcoming grand opening ceremony and the interior public spaces. This was an opportunity that would make any peer envious. On the day the magazine was published, I looked at the photo of my vibrant studio on the cover, and the interview photos inside showing me standing amidst flowers. My gaze calm and resolute. A quiet joy filled my heart. The article didn't explicitly mention the unpleasant past, yet between the lines, one could read the journey of a woman climbing from rock bottom and creating beauty with her own hands. On the day of the opening ceremony, my designs became the focal point of the entire event. The massive, vibrant floral installations created a wonderful and harmonious contrast with the stark modern architecture, drawing countless praises and inquiries. I moved gracefully among the guests, dressed in a simple, sharp suit, fielding congratulations and curious glances from all sides. Just as I was pleasantly conversing with the project manager, my peripheral vision caught sight of a figure both familiar and strange. Mark. He stood in a nearby corner, holding the magazine with my feature, gazing silently at me. He had lost a lot of weight, the vibrancy on his face long replaced by a look of dejection and loneliness. His gaze was complex, filled with regret, shock, and a hint of overwhelming embarrassment. He seemed to be attending the ceremony as a regular employee from a partner company. He was a stark contrast to me, standing confidently in the spotlight, the center of everyone's praise. Our eyes met briefly across the room. His gaze expressed a yearning to approach and speak, even carrying a hint of a final, humble plea. I simply gave him a calm, distant nod, as if acknowledging an unimportant stranger, then naturally turned my head and continued my previous conversation, a professional and sincere smile on my face. There were no harsh words, no victor's gloating, not even a ripple of emotion. This complete, dismissive indifference was more powerful than any revenge. It clearly drew a line, declaring his definitive exit and the vibrant renewal of my world. He froze in place for a moment. Finally, like a faded shadow, he silently and completely disappeared from beyond the bustling crowd. After the ceremony, I returned to my meticulously arranged studio. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle, reflecting on the thriving plants and flowers within. My phone buzzed with a continuous stream of new collaboration invitations and congratulatory messages. I picked up a cup of herbal tea and stood by the window, my heart filled with an unprecedented sense of peace and fulfillment. The story of Mark, Chloe, betrayal, and lies was finally and completely closed that chapter. It hadn't broken me. Instead, it had become the fertile ground for my rebirth. From then on, my world was wide open. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section. Here is Roses and Love, sharing stories about marriage and women every day. See you tomorrow.